My next Patreon question is from Joshua, who wanted me to compare two sports fantasy films. Between the following two films about a kid who goes into a professional sport with help from a magical, powerful object, which is better, Rookie of the Year or Like Mike? There was a time when studios would greenlight these wish-fulfillment fantasies involving children getting involved in sports, and both of these definitely have their fair share of similarities. These two were even produced by 20th Century Fox, so be sure to look for them on Disney Plus when that launches. But which do I prefer? I think both are heavily flawed, but I'm going to give the edge to Rookie of the Year. A lot of the time, Rookie of the Year is carried by the lead actor Thomas Ian Nicholas, and he does a decent job as Henry. What leads him to being in Major League Baseball is he breaks his arm, which gives it incredible pitching skills. While this gets him onto the Chicago Cubs, that plot point actually takes a back seat most of the time, as the film mostly shows the price of fame, and we also see him bond with one of the other players portrayed by Gary Busey. Busey gives a really good performance, as we see how Henry grows to respect him. I'm surprised the Chicago Cubs gave the okay to a movie that portrays them as so desperate they would put a child on the team, and depicts the manager as a slimy profiteer. I also found Rookie of the Year to be, ironically, a bit too inside baseball. I don't watch baseball, but a lot of movies centered on the sport are able to explain the rules so outsiders like myself can understand the basics. Rookie of the Year seems to assume the audience going in to see it is already familiar with the ins and outs, so I was left scratching my head at a few of the plays and how the games progress. Humor-wise, the movie is hit or miss. We get a few funny moments with Daniel Stern, who also directed the film, as the pitching coach, and John Candy appears in an uncredited role as a sports announcer. But there are also standard and not particularly successful gags, like Henry provoking the other team with chicken taunts. Rookie of the Year is very much a middle-of-the-road family comedy that does have a few solid performances and fun ideas, but it's not a film that will ever stick with me. As for Like Mike, it manages to have an even more preposterous story than Rookie of the Year. It's about an orphan who finds Michael Jordan's childhood shoes and magically becomes an amazing basketball player. And sure, it's a fantasy, but that does not take away from the absurdity of this premise. A lot of the film rests on Little Bow Wow's shoulders. This was his first major acting role, and unfortunately he's not given the needed direction. The writing also leaves a lot to be desired, as I did not find the movie to be particularly funny or inventive. It's the sort of movie that was common in that era, with children outsmarting the not very bright adults. That's something that could be done well, but this is a movie that tries to make Crispin Glover seem like a threat. Similar to Rookie of the Year, there's an attempt at a bond between Little Bow Wow and a basketball player played by Morris Chestnut, but I did not sense much chemistry between them. Funny enough, both movies have a scene where the lead overeats on candy from a hotel minibar. One major difference between them is that Like Mike uses a fictional basketball team. I guess the Los Angeles Lakers weren't interested, but they do compete against the Toronto Raptors in the climax. Something interesting upon watching the movie is seeing the child actors in the film, some of whom had careers that went in different directions. Little Bow Wow was already an established rapper at that point, and he did appear in other roles since then, while Jonathan Lipnicki has mostly done smaller films in his adult years. Brenda Song and Jesse Plemons turned out to be Like Mike's two breakouts, though, as Song has had an impressive film and television career, mostly for Disney. And Plemons, who played the orphanage bully, has been in several high-profile projects, including Martin Scorsese's new film, The Irishman. Otherwise, there's not a whole lot else to say about Like Mike. There are a few moments that sort of work, and I've seen worse, but I just did not find it all that funny or endearing or entertaining. But which do you prefer, Like Mike or Rookie of the Year? Let me know in the comments, and thank you for your question, Joshua.